Welcome back to Inside Criminal Minds, the series dedicated to analyzing an elite BAU team. If you are new to the series, there is a link in the description to catch you up. This episode begins with a bloodied security guard at a bank where a man is holding everyone else hostage while they are all in their underwear, when the robber forces one of the hostages to do something we aren't privy to yet, and this is the third unsub in a row that has a sexual aspect to his crime, which in this season seems to be a pattern, which could be looked as a way to set up profile, but more on that later. When we see JJ informing the rest of the BAU of the acts of this unsub, showing the CCTV footage of the unsub and his actions. Then it's revealed that the hostages were pulled away for simulating sexual actions, showing a level of psychoerotic thrill that is quite disturbing. Reed does find this a bit interesting, whereas Elle,
he's a sex offender now.
And Gideon tries to reunite the discussion by adding his expertise as we see the unsub prepare for his next outing. And even though he hasn't killed yet, he's
a serial killer in the making.
After the meeting, Hodge is met with his wife, upset that he forgot about his son's hospital visit, and it turns out he has a small condition, easily controlled, so easy they never bring it up ever again. And we start to see the cracks in Hodge's marriage, and the fact that he is more loyal to his job than Haley, which I enjoy. It's not every series we would see such a slow burn in a relationship. Normally, it's a note on the kitchen table, but it works very well. Also, it ties into the story extremely well. Also, Haley sums this pretty much perfectly.
I don't want you to wake up someday in some random city and realize that you don't know your own son.
She is concerned about Hotch's relationship with his son, furthering the separation. Next on the plane, we see the team discuss how the media is portraying the suspect, and Elle seems a little more perturbed than usual, and the team discuss more in detail the MO and how and who he targets to attempt to create a preliminary profile for this unsub. Also, learning that part of the surveillance tapes from the most previous robbery were messed up, a detail that will make more sense later in the episode. The team split up. Reed, being the nerd, creates a geographical profile. Elle and Hodge speak with the victims, and Morgan and Gideon recreate the crime scene step by step. First, discuss his transportation. This unsub is using a motorcycle, and in LA, that's a really smart move because dealing with the traffic will be a piece of cake. Reed at the police station plots the points on a map and infer that the unsub lives in an area where a couple of 100,000 people live, as Hodge and Elle prepare to indulge in the recorded eyewitness testimony. Elle even attempts to flirt with one of the detectives. It goes nowhere. Back at the bank, Morgan relives the unsub's crimes to better understand him, and Gideon is trying to help Morgan by asking him questions about the unsub to get the best out of Morgan. Gideon really is the best, and they realize the unsub went to prison.
Best trade school in the country.
Meanwhile, Hodge contacts Garcia to get a better understanding of the unsub's dimensions.
Honey, if he opens his mouth, I'll give you the length of his teeth.
Just keep it clean and don't call me honey.
And the little playful banter with Hodge and Garcia is always a welcome addition. Then Elle reveals one of the victims was the wife of the hostage in the first scene. That was actually the bank manager who had access to security tapes and could potentially hide evidence from the police. And we are back at the bank where we discuss the victims and their relationship to each other. Also ask why these victims specifically and realize that they are missing vital information from the bank manager. And back at the station, the team float the idea that the bank manager could be working with the unsub or possibly coerce. When Garcia calls explaining that the unsub's height changed, but due to his unique MO, we know that no one else is doing this. However, Hodge and Gideon talk to the manager to get to the bottom of the allegation, and they quickly figure out that the manager was just embarrassed to weed out his connections with the the unsub. Then Garcia is having a nervous breakdown due to her software, and she is realizing that the unsub must have been wearing lifts in his shoes the first two robberies, and we have the most intelligent BAU's team stumped due to lifts. Really, the MO is way too consistent to be basically anyone else. Next, the team delivers the profile to the rest of the station, and this reveals this unsub is a drug addict. Other than that, nothing really changes. Meanwhile, the unsub is taking control of another bank. One man refuses his orders, and the unsub brutally murders him. And as the profile is wrapped up, a detective warns them of the robbery in progress, and they quickly rush to the bank, Hotch urging the driver to move faster, but the unsub gets wise to one of the hostages calling out and flees on his motorcycle.
Is this your bike?
Gideon's team attempts to chase him and follow for a while until the unsub leaves them in the dust, showing a level of competence unusual to a drug addict. Then Hotch and Morgan comb through the crime scene, and the team infer that the unsub isn't going to rob another bank. Next, Hotch is watching a video on his phone of Jack's first steps, and Hotch plays this in order to show that he knows he can't leave the job, but desperately wants to be with his family, when Morgan shows up and tries to help.
Okay, so you film a new one when you get home.
And even though Morgan's intentions were just, I feel like Hotchner felt like Morgan was twisting the knife about how Hotch isn't there for his family. It is kind of a more bittersweet scene. However, Reed, Elle, and JJ go through a list of potential suspects and land on one Roland Lynch that loosely fits the profile. Gideon and Morgan discuss with Lynch's parole officer and get some information that leads them to a club he frequents. And during the initial interrogation, Lynch stonewalls mostly, but starts to soften up when Gideon
Went after little old ladies, kids. Witnesses say you got off when the old lady took her shirt off.
Unfortunately, they get the wrong guy because the unsub starts shooting up a restaurant, and JJ notifies Elle, who is on the phone with Morgan. Next, the team arrive at the restaurant to go over this security footage, and new facet to the MO arises, as the unsub forced a 14-year-old to hit his mother until he refused and gets shot down. And this gets under Hotch's skin.
No, you don't do this to someone else's kids to get off. You just don't do it.
But this gets Hotch and Gideon to infer about the initial victims, and why only now did the unsub target children, forcing the team to interview the bank manager again. During this interrogation, his wife finally breaks down and begs him to tell the whole story, and after that, the child of the manager provides some clarification to Hotch and Gideon and reveals the unsub said sorry after the fact, which changes the profile slightly. They figure he's not a sadist. Reed figures out that the unsub is using a therapy technique for his trauma.
It's a psychodrama.
He said it! He said it!
And the team realized that this specific therapy session is adapted from a nearby jail, helping to narrow down the suspect list to Caleb Shepard. And Reed shows his nerdier side.
That's only 1.6 miles from the last restaurant that he hit. I've been studying a lot of LA maps.
Next, the team interview Caleb's mother. She is unfortunately not too helpful due to her drug use, but they also find out Caleb's sister unalived herself, which helped his psychosis worsen. But the cops find a matchbook with his hotel in it. Then, in one of the best scenes with Morgan flashing his badge and Elle flashing a picture of Caleb, the hotel worker looks like, this is the 5th convict I've had to deal with today, and gives them the keys. They get to the room, Elle offers the key, and Morgan
I got one.
Unfortunately, Caleb is gone, high on meth, when we see Caleb scoping the area looking for a target when he finds one at a birthday party and someone notices his MAC-10, and he gets everybody to comply and tries to force a kid to kill his mother using a hunting knife. But Hotch and Gideon make it to him, and Hotch shoots him in the shoulder, which is interesting because I don't think that anybody would actually take that shot because he would still be able to cut the kid's throat, but the kid ends up being safe, so it's not a big deal. And Hotch gets another great scene.
Look at these people. Look at them. They're children. They're children, for God's sake.
And it doesn't stop there, because immediately after that, Hotch is in the ambulance when...
He's a drug addict. He's detoxing. I don't care what he asks for. Don't give him anything.
Come on. He's not a doctor.
He's right. I'm an FBI agent, and he killed a 14-year-old boy today.
Such a great line, but during this conversation, Caleb does say something that gets into Hotch's head, that kids have to learn that no one's there for him. And it really strikes Hotch at the home because he's not at home with his family. On the plane home, Gideon and Hotch discuss how Hotch was recruiting new FBI agents and feels terrible because he knows the pitfalls and doesn't wish that on anyone, and is conflicted because he wants the new members but doesn't want to promise the world and give them a pot of dirt. Also, he is upset about how someone like Caleb can be created with Gideon, reassuring him,
Save one life, we save the world.
That's it for this episode. Very much a Hotchner episode, how he's reacting not just to the unsub, but also to his family. And as previously stated, this is the first real argument Haley and him have, showing the unstable footing that he is on and how he has to focus entirely on his job to save the lives. That final scene, that's much more important. The unsub's creativeness and even through drugs, executed brilliant plans and even dodging the police, but ultimately gets locked up. Thank you for watching. If you are curious on how a spy who gets fired survives the turmoil, catch Burned Notice. Link in the description. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe.